The 1st Texas Infantry walked into D.R. Miller's cornfield on the morning of September 17, 1862, with 226 men. They walked out with 40. The stalk stood high enough to hide a man, which meant you didn't see the enemy until you were close enough to count buttons. John Bell Hood's division had been pulled off the line to cook breakfast, their first hot meal in days when the shooting started. They never got to eat. Within 3 hours, 82% of the 1st Texas was dead or bleeding in the furrows. The Maryland campaign ran from September 4th to September 20th, 1862, culminating in the Battle of Antietam near Sharpsburg. Lee's invasion of the North failed there, ending Confederate hopes for British recognition. The fight opened at dawn. Joseph Hooker's I Corps hit Stonewall Jackson's position on Lee's left flank. The objective was high ground near the Dunker Church. The fighting centered on Miller's cornfield. The Iron Brigade, 2nd, 6th, 7th, Wisconsin, 19th Indiana, identifiable by their black hardy hats, advanced through corn tall enough to conceal soldiers. They couldn't see the Confederates until they were yards away. The first volleys came at point blank range. Hood's division had been pulled back to cook. When the firing started, they were ordered forward without eating. The 1st Texas led Hood's counterattack and drove the Iron Brigade back across the cornfield. Then they overran their support. Alone in the open field, they took enfilade fire from Union artillery and fresh Pennsylvania infantry. The regiment lost 186 men out of 226, an 82 3% casualty rate. Half of them had been barefoot when they crossed into Maryland 2 weeks earlier. The roads made of crushed stone tore up feet that Virginia dirt had only blistered. Thomas Lyons McCarty of the 1st Texas wrote, "We went hungry. For 6 days, not a morsel of bread or meat had gone in our stomachs. We toasted, we burned, we stewed, we boiled, we roasted these two together and singly until there was not a man whose form had not caved in, and who had not a bad attack of diarrhea. They'd been eating green corn and unripe apples, foraged from Maryland farms, because the Confederate commissary system had collapsed. And still they charged." When Lee asked Hood where his division was later that morning, Hood replied, "Dead on the field." Captain Werner von Bichel of Company F, a French Napoleonic veteran who'd immigrated to Texas, brought his trained Newfoundland into the fight. He was shot dead in the corn. The dog stayed with his body when the line retreated. Union soldiers found the dog on September 19th, lying dead on von Bichel's corpse. They buried them together. The cornfield changed hands 15 times in 3 hours. By 9 o'clock a.m., it was empty of living men. As the northern fight stabilized, the center became active. D.H. Hill's division held a sunken farm road, worn down by years of wagon traffic. The depression formed a natural trench. French's and Richardson's divisions of the Union II Corps attacked it around 9:30 a. The Irish Brigade, 63rd, 69th, 88th New York, 29th Massachusetts, led the assault. Commanded by Brigadier General Thomas Francis Mager, they advanced toward Alabamians and North Carolinians entrenched in the road. A rail fence blocked their approach. They dismantled it under fire, then closed to 30 paces. The Irish still carried smoothbore muskets loaded with buck and ball, one 69 caliber ball plus 3 buckshot, devastating at close range. The 63rd New York took nearly 60% casualties. The 69th lost 196 men. The regimental colors of the 69th were shot down multiple times. The flagstaff was shattered by the end of the engagement. The Confederates in the road died or withdrew. So many bodies filled the lane that soldiers later called it Bloody Lane. Private Patrick Nolan of Company D, 69th New York, survived the fight at the Sunken Road. He'd transferred from the 5th Infantry after that regiment was destroyed at 2nd Bull Run in August. New York State records show his promotion to sergeant on September 18th, the day after the battle. Field promotions for conspicuous gallantry weren't common enough to be routine. Nolan must have done something that caught an officer's eye during the assault on the road. While the center ground itself down, Ambrose Burnside's IX Corps struggled to cross Antietam Creek on the Union left. A stone bridge offered the only practical crossing point. A few hundred Georgians under Robert Toombs defended it from high bluffs. They pinned entire Union divisions for hours. The 51st Pennsylvania and 51st New York finally stormed the bridge after repeated failures. A persistent story involves Colonel Edward Ferrero and a whiskey ration. His men had recently been denied their whiskey due to disciplinary issues. Before the charge, a corporal supposedly shouted, "Will you give us our whiskey, Colonel, if we make it?" Ferrero, "Yes, by God." They took the bridge at Bayo Point. By late afternoon, Burnside's men pushed toward Sharpsburg, threatening to cut Lee's retreat. Then A.P. Hill's Light Division arrived from Harper's Ferry, wearing blue uniforms captured there. The Union troops hesitated. Hill's men looked like reinforcements for their own side. Hill smashed into the Union left flank and stopped the advance. Lee's army survived. The battle happened because of an intelligence failure. Lee's Special Order 191, detailing his division of forces to capture Harper's Ferry, while the rest of the army moved north, was found wrapped around 3 cigars in a field near Frederick on September 13th. Corporal Barton Mitchell of the 27th Indiana picked it up. McClellan received a complete copy of Lee's operational plan. He secured the South Mountain passes and forced the engagement at Sharpsburg before Lee could fully reconsolidate his divided army. Without the lost orders, McClellan might never have caught Lee at all. McClellan failed to destroy Lee despite having the reserves V and VI Corps sat unused. Part of the problem was his cavalry couldn't move. Grease heel and hoof rot had crippled thousands of horses. Grease heel is chronic dermatitis of the pastern, caused by mud and lack of grooming. Hoof rot comes from standing in manure without relief. Brigadier General Alfred Pleasanton reported thousands of horses unfit for service. One report noted about 800 men, losing their horses, had to play infantry. The Union cavalry simply lacked the mobility to execute a vigorous pursuit when Lee retreated across the Potomac. The Union's logistical advantage showed elsewhere. Herman Haupt ran the railroads. On September 18th, McClellan requested immediate resupply of long-range artillery ammunition. Haupt organized a special train that covered 200 miles from Washington to Hagerstown in under 12 hours, averaging 37 miles per hour, hitting 55 in stretches. That velocity was unprecedented in military logistics. It ensured Union artillery maintained fire superiority throughout the battle. Major Jonathan Letterman used Antietam to implement the first systematic medical evacuation system in American military history. The ambulance corps operated under centralized control, instead of regimental commanders making ad hoc decisions. Letterman created a 3-tier system: field dressing stations immediately behind the line for triage and hemorrhage control, field hospitals in nearby buildings for emergency surgery, and general hospitals in cities like Frederick for longer-term care. Despite 23,000 casualties, the highest single-day total in American history, most wounded were removed from the field within 24 hours. At 2nd Manassas weeks earlier, wounded had lain in the field for days. Lee withdrew into Virginia. Tactically, the battle was inconclusive. Strategically, it ended the war's diplomatic phase. That cornfield decided the war's global fate. Britain was watching. Textile mills in Lancashire had shut down, starving for southern cotton. But Prime Minister Palmerston wasn't going to bet an empire on a rebellion that couldn't sustain an invasion. Lee's retreat proved the Confederacy couldn't project power. When Lincoln issued the Preliminary Emancipation Proclamation on September 22nd, the war changed from a fight over Union to a fight over human property. British working class opinion swung hard behind the North. The cabinet killed the proposal for intervention. The diplomatic window didn't just close, it slammed shut. The combination of military check and moral pivot closed the diplomatic window. The South would have to win the war militarily or lose it. Sergeant Patrick Nolan didn't survive to see that outcome. 3 months after Antietam, at Fredericksburg, the Irish Brigade was ordered to assault Mary's Heights. They charged across open ground into artillery and musketry from behind a stone wall. Nolan was killed on December 13th, 1862. Company D of the 69th suffered horrific losses that day. Hugh Carley, another soldier who transferred from the 5th Infantry to Company D, died in the same assault. The 1st Texas Infantry lost its regimental colors in the Cornfield, a Lone Star flag reportedly made from Colonel Wigfall's wife's wedding dress. They never recovered it. The question wasn't whether the Confederacy could fight, but whether it could sustain fighting long enough to force recognition. The answer, delivered in blood across 30 acres, was no.